Welcome back to the I'm Book podcast. I'm April O'Leary, founder of O'Leary Publishing, and I am really excited for today's guest, Jennifer Johnson, who is the co-owner, I should say, of True Fashionistas, the largest resale consignment store in the state of Florida. She's also a keynote speaker, an entrepreneur, an amazing woman, and the new author of a book called Grace and Grit: Becoming a Confident Entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, April, for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
And I love that you're wearing pink. If you have not met Jennifer yet, and you ever do, she will probably be wearing pink, and her book cover is representative of her. And she's just super fun and super energetic. And I think pink is your color,
It's the
100%.
color
It
of
was Pink Day
friendliness.
recently, right?
What's that?
I said it was Pink Day recently, right?
Yes, it was. And you know what? I mean, pink is the color of friendliness and it's happy. And somebody asked me a few days ago, why do you where did that ever start? And I think it started when I moved to Florida because up north, we just wore dark drab colors all the time. And then down here, I'm like, no, I love pink. I'm wearing it every day.
Yeah. It's so funny. Same thing, when I moved to Florida, all I owned was black, white, and gray.
It's
And I
funny.
remember
And
my
it
cousin
changed.
saying, "You can wear colors now. You're in Florida." I was like, "But how? How do you wear colors?" So
I know it's kind of weird, but you get used to it.
I know, I love it. So Jennifer and I have known each other now for over 10 years, and we have crossed our wires through kids, through business networking, through collaborating on things, and now most recently
Mhm.
with publication of her brand new book, Grace and Grit. And I was so honored to work with her on this project because she is a true entrepreneur. And I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and how the book plays a piece of the puzzle in entrepreneurship. So let's start at the beginning because you cover a lot of entrepreneurial stuff in your book, from your roots to where you are today. But for a lot of the women that you work with in the consulting you do through the Confident Entrepreneur, you work with women about getting their ideas launched and off the ground. And so, what was that like for you in the very beginning? How did you know you were an entrepreneur?
Like at the very, very beginning?
Yeah, at the beginning, like some people just have that entrepreneurial spirit, and some people are like, I would much rather follow an entrepreneur or work under systems that are already set up for
Sure.
me because it's too stressful to sort of do my own thing. So, where did you sort of realize that being an entrepreneur fit your personality style and your
Sure.
drive?
Literally over 25 years ago, when I started my first company, I worked for somebody for a long, long time. And well, long, I was young, but I got married and I'm like, this wedding planning thing is easy. Like, oh my gosh, I think I really love it. So I did a certification course on how to plan weddings, got the certification, and started planning weddings out of my house. And from there, as if that wasn't enough, I kept adding services. I'm like, well, they need chair covers. There's nobody, I'm going to do chair covers. I wanted to own a bigger piece of the pie. I wanted to keep adding services so that I could keep my customers with me. So they're not going out, to all these different vendors. I'm like, I want to own that. Right. So I started a rental part of the business. And then I found a building for sale. I begged my husband, I'm like, please, I think we need this building because then I could do a bridal shop. And sure enough, we bought the building and I had a bridal shop, wedding rental business, a tux rental business, and the wedding planning. And I was bitten by the bug and I have never recovered from the
Is there
entrepreneurial
there's
bug.
no entrepreneurship vaccine or anything
No,
like that?
none. I mean, there are days.
Yes,
There are
there
days
are
like I think
days.
but it's just been a great journey. And I'm one that if I find something that's missing or an old industry, an antiquated industry where I think I could make a change that I have passion about, I'm not even going to think about it. That sometimes is a problem, but I
Yeah.
will just go, you know what? I'm going to do it. Just jump both feet in. And I have the saying, I've heard it from somebody, and so I'm repurposing it, but I've always used it to kind of guide me. Start before you're ready, because
Yeah.
all we have to do is put that first foot forward. And that's sometimes 95% of it. If
Yeah.
we don't do that, then we're stuck back here, kind of holding ourselves back.
That's funny. I've heard it said, and I've said it myself a number of times, ready, fire, aim. Which is like,
Right.
right? Like we kind of, I think as entrepreneurs, and we share this in common. And for those of you listening who have that entrepreneurial spirit, you understand that sometimes you just have to get going, and you'll find out along the way whether the idea is working or not, and how to pivot and when to let go and when to add. And that's part of the fun of entrepreneurship. And it's also part of the stress and the struggle. And that's why the book is called Grace and Grit, because it requires both.
It does. You can't have one without the other, especially when you're an entrepreneur. It takes everything. Everything that you have. Some days you are completely drained at the end of the day, and other days you're completely exhilarated. And most of the time you're somewhere in between.
Yeah, for sure. So, because it's fun to hear the grit, I think, and that's where a lot of people identify because we can all celebrate each other's successes where we make the total 3 point
Mhm.
shot at the buzzer. But
Right.
it's those days where you're dragged up and down the court and you lose, or you
Mhm.
feel like I'm in the wrong sport or whatever,
The
right?
wrong
So,
genre altogether.
yes, all the time. So, what are some of those early lessons that you experienced in your first sort of go around in entrepreneurship that might be helpful for others who are in that process of like grinding it out with gritting their teeth and that grit needed to stick through it?
That's such a great question. I think it starts with consistency. So whatever it is that you're doing, I don't care whether you're posting on social media, if you're dialing it down to one small thing, and let's say it's social media, be consistent. Or if it whatever aspect it is in your business, you need to be consistent. It's like you put a sign outside your door that says you're open for business. Today, I think I'm just gonna stay till 1 o'clock. Tomorrow, maybe I'll stay till 2. Maybe 5 the next day. That's giving the wrong message to your customers.
Mhm.
Just like if you're posting to social media or you're doing any other focused area on your business, if you just do it, pardon my language, but half ass,
Mhm.
and whenever you feel like it, that's not showing your potential customers that I'm in it to win it, that I'm passionate about it. I'm just dialing it in. I'm just calling it in and seeing what would happen. So consistency, certainly. And it's not something that you can teach, but there's got to be a fire in your belly.
Yeah.
There has to be that passion for what you're doing. And if at any point you wake up and go, oh my gosh, I really don't want to go to work. Now, outside of the few days where you've got some stuff,
Right.
some heavy stuff going on at work, right? But if you wake up and more than one day and go, oh, I just don't want to go to work, you need to really think about why is that? Am I now in an industry where I don't want to be? Have I
Yeah.
kind of I played that out and I don't really want to do that anymore? Then that's something that you really need to pay attention to. Certainly. And then my last piece would be talking about paying attention, but to listen to your gut. And as women, I know we do that a lot, but we really need to listen and heed the advice of what it's telling us. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably because it's not right and it's not sitting with your core values. And I talk about that in the book. I talk about it's all about core values and how we weave them in our life and how we weave them in our business. And when you sit back and you see something and you're just like, I don't know why, but it's not feeling like I should do this. I'm not feeling it. Then do that gut check. Gut check.
Yeah. It's great advice because I think as women, and it's something I've been learning a lot about the way we're trained differently gender wise, just by society. I think women are often taught your feelings are wrong. They shouldn't
Hmm.
be this, or they shouldn't be that, or you should be more appreciative, or you shouldn't feel that way. And part of being an entrepreneur is like no one else knows how to steer your ship than you. No one
Yes.
knows better.
Amen.
And so if there was this, compass that's saying you're heading in the wrong direction, you may be sensing anxiety, or like you said, you just don't want to get up
Mhm.
and do that thing that you thought so desperately you wanted to do. It's saying maybe that's something to pay
Right.
attention to. So you mentioned core values,
Hmm.
and the book disguised as an entrepreneurship book is really a book that can help us to steer our lives in the right direction. in business and life, because core
Mhm.
values is something that, while it might not seem like a sexy, the top 3 ways to earn your next, 7 figures in 6 months,
Right.
it's what will get you to those next levels. And so,
Right.
how did you find out your core values, or how did you realize you didn't have the core values you thought you had? Like someone who's like, okay, core values. Yeah, I love my family. I want to have health. Like
Right.
I think that's kind of those buckets that we all agree
Mhm.
on. But how do you know, really, as an entrepreneur, how to make decisions deliberately from core values? How did you get to that?
And it took me years because honestly, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're missing until something happens and you go, why am I having such a hard time with this? Like what is going on? So I think it was over my life, little things happened. And as they happened, when I was able to, and I'm gonna just talk about a little bit about pink space in a minute, but how as these things happen, if you allow yourself that pink space, that time away to think about what it was that happened, what was the lesson that I should have or should be learning from that. That's how I discovered what my core values are. Because I was like these little things were always like over here
Mhm.
saying, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And when you really listen to them and get down to the nitty gritty and get quiet with yourself, you realize what that is, and that's how I really figured out what my core values were. It was a series of events in my life that when you take the time to get quiet enough, and I dub it pink space. Pink space basically means that it's an intentional pause. It's that comma. It's not a period. It's not an ending. It's a comma that gives you that pause so that you can sit and reflect on what just happened. There's no judgment in that space. There's just you're sitting back and you're observing is essentially what you're doing. And from that comes this beautiful revelation that, wow, that's something that's really important to me. That's probably a core value. But people
Mm,
don't think of it that way. And if you retrain your thinking around it, there's a lesson in everybody's mess.
yeah. And I love that you said, in the pink space, there's no judgment. Like my top core value could be freedom, for
Hmm.
example, and your top core value could be security.
Hmm.
And both are legitimately good core values that would play out differently in the world of an entrepreneur. Someone who is their top core value is stability and security, they might not want to be an entrepreneur
Right.
because that is a rocky road. They might
Mhm.
want to be a teacher or be someone who has a regular income coming in because they want to be able to plan their they know they're going to deposit X amount in their retirement every paycheck. They know that they're going to get these salary increases
Right.
every year, whatever. But for someone who's an entrepreneur, that might feel very stifling
Right.
because their core,
Exactly.
right? They might feel like, oh my
Mhm.
God, I can never, because I can't pull the lever to double my income if I take
Right.
these strategic risks. There's no
Right.
possible way towards that end.
Right.
However, if I don't pull those right levers, I'd also lose money. But
Right.
for
There's that glass
entrepreneurs,
ceiling.
it's like
Yeah.
the excitement of, I'd say, the execution of ideas and learning along the way. And so if you find out that being an entrepreneur, you feel super stressed out, and then you realize, oh, but my highest goal is security, then you
Yes.
might say to yourself, oh, that's why this path isn't working for
Mhm.
me,
Exactly. You
or
can't
vice
fight it.
versa. So yeah.
Right. Fighting it is going to get you nowhere. So you just go, okay, what is the universe trying to tell me? What is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I would love, you talk a bit about this in the book. So I don't necessarily want you to spoil it for everybody, but maybe give an example of something that happened before you knew your core values that sort of alerted you something was happening, it wasn't feeling right, and then you realize, oh, this is why.
Gosh, there are so many. I will share, I will share one of the most profound things. And it was, I was very young. It was 30 some years ago. And, I had this boyfriend who was extremely abusive. And I'm not going to give all the details because, again, it is in my book, but abusive. to say the least. And I hung out with his crowd, and I basically simmered myself down to be at his level, because I didn't know at 17, 16 to 18 who the heck I was. I mean, who does? Really?
Right. Right.
Who does at that age? And so I got caught up in it, and I didn't do horrible things, but I had horrible things done to me.
Mm.
And that literally changed my entire life.
Mm.
Didn't know it at the time why I was still holding on, and why I was with him, and why I was hanging out with his crowd. But years later, as had time to heal, and a lot of healing for me came in the way of advocating for people and speaking about the topic and all of that. But it came to me that one of my core values is really being true to who you are and finding the right, because I didn't know what I had, or I didn't know what my core values were. I wasn't meshing with the right people. I didn't know who to stand with, who to stand by, who to hang out with. And so one of my core values is finding the right people to be around. Really,
Mm.
that that came out of that, but it didn't come out of it immediately. It's not like a whoa. It
Right.
came to me. It, it came to me later in life,
Mm.
but I didn't know it at the time that that was kind of forming in me to come out later. You unearth them. It's like
That's a good
you're
way
an
to.
anthropologist and you're digging them up,
Yeah.
because
Like excavating, right? Like
you are.
you're learning through digging through a lot of dirt. I love
Mhm.
that I analogy.
Yeah,
And you're digging through all the dirt, and where are the rocks and where are the gems? And
exactly.
and and then you get to decide like, oh, the reason why these things happened was I didn't surround myself with the right people. And I
And,
think that.
with that is
Mhm.
that whole pink space, that being able to reflect on things and think about things
Yeah.
in a different way, because we get so busy going through our daily life, doing everything that we do, and we forget about that. We don't take that time to reflect.
Yeah. And you know what they say, the unexamined life isn't worth living.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Right? You
I've
haven't
never
heard
heard that.
that quote?
Never.
Yes.
No,
Are you serious?
never.
Yeah, that's a very popular quote. I wish I could tell you who said that, but that's a quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And it's true, because if you're just blindly going through every day
Mhm.
and you're never going back to think about why did that happen, especially as an entrepreneur, right? If you lost a lot of money, and
Mhm.
instead of just looking around and blaming people around you like, "Oh, this person took me to the cleaners because they lied to me," or they but in what ways did you contribute to that loss?
Right.
Was it that you didn't do your due diligence? Did you
Right.
take an unnecessary risk? Did you not follow the advice of your business mentor?
Right.
Whatever the reason, and then deciding, "Oh, well, maybe I was too rushed." So the core
Right.
value is take it slow,
Mhm.
right? Maybe. If you find that that's getting a lot
Right.
if you find these same lessons keep resurfacing, reflecting
Exactly.
through the pink space and saying, why?
Mhm.
What about it? Yes, there are definitely things we can't control. And I know in your business, for example, as I've seen you grow along the way,
Mhm.
there's been times where you've taken a risk
Mhm.
for growth or whatever. And sometimes it worked out great and sometimes not. And that's sort of just the way the cookie crumbles
It
sometimes in
is.
business, because you don't know, you can't predict.
And that's actually another core value of mine is faith, because
Mm,
having what gets you through that is faith.
yeah.
And I have this, my favorite saying of all time is, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
Mhm.
And it's very true, because you have to have a big dose of faith when you're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because everything isn't going to be wine and roses and unicorns. It's never that way. Everybody romanticizes being an entrepreneur, being
Yeah.
your own boss. And there are days, I mean, there's not many, but there are days where I wish I could call my boss and quit.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you're done.
Right.
But I can't. And I would never want to choose a life other than what I have.
Yeah.
Because for me, this is what I was meant for.
Yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And Jennifer has so many of these great stories and lessons in her book that if you haven't picked up Grace and Grit yet, absolutely you have to. But I will say that she doesn't just stick to business, 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 because when you're an entrepreneur, life and business get so the lines get crossed. And
Like
I
that.
sometimes wish as an entrepreneur that it could be more separate, right? Like if you were working a job for somebody else and they set up the systems and they set up the schedule and all that, my guess, because I've never actually done that, I've always had this entrepreneurship bug as well, is that your personality isn't going to sink or swim the ship because the ship is much bigger than you and not so dependent on your personal growth. Whereas an entrepreneur, you can't avoid it.
Right.
You have to show up as
Mhm.
yourself. So whatever you have developed in yourself will show up in your business.
Right.
Interesting enough.
Right.
So what would you say now that you are kind of pivoting? So Jennifer's True Fashionistas resale consignment shop is thriving. If you're in Naples, Florida, be sure to stop in there and bring a lot of money with you because you're going to be there for hours and you'll come out with so many clothes. You're going to be so happy. Actually, the dress I'm wearing right now, I got at True Fashionistas. I have to tell
Mine
you,
too.
and I get compliments on it. But I would say that, as you've grown,
Hmm.
and you have store manager and employees
Yes.
and systems and great social media and all that, this entrepreneur bug, and people asking you, how did you do it? Sort of led you to now what is the confident entrepreneur, podcast, the book, the consulting, the speaking. And so I
Mm.
want to talk about your next adventure in entrepreneurship. Not that you don't still have your other venture going, which
Right.
you do, but that you are someone who can just see a vision, get consistent, put the right pieces in place, and just go with it. Not
Right.
to mention, Jennifer is also graduating with her degree soon. And that's a whole nother exciting adventure.
It is.
So I don't know. Like, I think there must be a clone of Jennifer out there somewhere. Like, I still like, I'm thinking I should have run into you somewhere else today in town with a
Gosh.
different shirt on and be like, now I understand it.
I have a twin, right?
You must, you must. But so let's talk about the ecosystem that you're building as an entrepreneur and the Jennifer Ann Johnson brand, which is
Yes.
the website you can go to, jenniferannjohnson.com, to see all of the various offerings that Jennifer
Yes.
has. But how did you conceive of that idea and what's your vision for it? And how does the book play into that? I'd love to sort of talk all
Sure.
that through so people who are growing their personal brand can see what that looks like.
Let me tell you, it was a discombobulated mess when I started it 2.5 years ago. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, I started out, okay, judgment free. I
This is a
started out,
judgment-free zone.
right. I started out with the podcast and
Hmm.
it was entitled The Fashionista Life
Yep.
because I had this grand vision that I wanted to be the modern Martha Stewart.
Hmm.
Right? Like I loved everything that, I loved her gardening, her cooking, her entertainment. I loved all that. So my podcast was really aimed on entertaining and etiquette and lifestyle stuff. Not as and fashion, really. And not as much business stuff. So I did that podcast for a year. And then last year, I got very clear on what it was that I wanted to do. And it was that I wanted to help other entrepreneurs who were just starting out or who were stuck and in a roadblock going, I have no idea. I'm frustrated. I'm overwhelmed, first of all. I'm confused and I'm nervous about everything. How do I get past that? Well, I wanted to create actionable solutions and ways that I could help get them unstuck. So
Mm.
I went, okay, well, then why should my podcast be about, you know, entertaining?
Right.
So I hyper focused my podcast on interviewing successful entrepreneurs to see what they were doing. Let's talk about your success and what have you done? And I brought in experts from financial to marketing to social media experts, anybody and everybody in the ecosystem of small business and entrepreneurship that could help my listeners. And now going into my third season, I'm even getting more hyper focused. We're going to be talking about very hyper focused areas of each of those realms of marketing, let's say, or social media. But my whole goal with this, once I got crystal clear on what it was, is to help educate and walk alongside those entrepreneurs, those small business owners that were frustrated, that were anxious, that were scared, overwhelmed, and help bring them back to a place of peace.
Mm.
They could run their companies and be confident, be confident in everything that they're doing. And I don't look at myself as just the regular old, business consultant. I'm not that. I'm somebody who's lived and breathed it. I've been my own boss for over 25 years. I've been there. I've done that on many, many occasions. Now it's my turn to teach that to people and to help people to hold their hand and walk beside them on creating and growing their businesses.
I love that. And I will say, as a plug for you, that if you're listening now and you are in that space of, I either have a business idea or I'm in the trenches or I'm trying to grow it and I'm frustrated, to hire a coach who has never grown their own business would be a big mistake.
Mhm.
So, working with whoever you're going to work with, make sure that they've accomplished the thing that you want to accomplish, because otherwise, I don't see how they can help. And I used to always laugh that, for example, I had someone in my life when my kids were little who would constantly give me advice about how to parent my kids. However, this person did not ever have kids. And I
Yes.
would laugh because I would say, "Oh, is that what you do when you had your kids?" And she would be like, "Touche."
Yeah.
Because
And
you really can't know. And I
right.
think that by you hyper focusing on the thing that you've already accomplished, what a gift for people who are in the, like, who Jennifer Johnson was 10 years ago, you could help that person.
Right, exactly. And that was the whole premise around this. And that's why I have several ways they can work with me one on one, or they can take my courses that are on my Small Business Academy. But I did this because I didn't have this. I had
Mhm.
nothing of this type. I had organizations that I could go to, but it wasn't the same thing because a lot of those people that you don't pay to go to, uh,
Yes.
you know, there's organizations around that do that free of charge, but they all worked for big businesses. No
Right.
one had had a small business, and I didn't have that. So I want that for my listeners and my my clients. That's what I really want for them. And an interesting note, we were talking about people who haven't walked in our shoes. And I can tell you from experience from the academia world, just because I went back to school and the things that are being taught. And don't get me wrong, education is wonderful, it's needed, all of that. I'm not bashing that. I'm just saying a lot of people in academia don't necessarily that are teaching these business classes have never walked in our shoes.
Right.
So it's important to get the coaching that you need and that from somebody who's actually been there. And that's a big thing that people often oh, I don't need a coach. I don't. For what? Once you start working with one that's good, you're going to be like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I know about this?
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
makes a difference.
for sure. And so you hyper focused the podcast
Hmm.
and really narrowed it down to business
Hmm.
and rebranded. So you weren't
Correct.
going to be the new Martha Stewart. You're now the Jennifer Ann Johnson, who is the cream de la crop small business mentor and coach.
Yes.
And now you're considering writing a book.
Hmm.
And how did you feel when you first got that idea? How did you get the idea? Why did you think that was important to do?
Well, I've actually had the idea a long time ago, but I tabled it. I put it on that shelf. I'll do it later. I'll do it sometime. It was on my bucket list. And I honestly, I don't remember where I was coming back from. I was in my car and I was driving, and it was something that really amped me up, whatever it was. I can't remember what. And I just went, that's it. I'm writing it. I don't care. Nothing's stopping me. So I came home and I started outlining what I wanted. And then when we sat down and did the book, and I came in and had all these ideas, and it completely changed from what I thought I was writing. I thought I was writing a book basically on domestic violence and sexual assault and how you get past that and everything. And I realized there was more in me than just
Mhm.
that. There was a message to small business owners and people in
Mhm.
general. And it really came out. And I remember when I was, getting the stuff back from the editor, and I would get suggestions. I was on there and I was literally like so fast, and it just flowed. It just came out of me.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's the important thing I think with um, growing a business or writing a book or doing anything of importance. It's like you're not going and locking yourself in a closet and trying to
Mhm.
do it by yourself.
Right.
It's like looking for people who can help you see things maybe you don't see. So it's in the sense of a business coach. They might, Jennifer might say, like, it doesn't sound like you're in alignment with your core values. What are your core values? Let's go through that. That's not something you're
Mhm.
probably going to do like
Right.
on your own.
Mhm.
And so when writing a book, when I remember where we were, and it
Mhm.
was Heather and you and I sitting at a table, kind of brainstorming ideas and getting all of this
Yes.
out. And as we were kind of rounding the corner in the session, it was like the light bulb, I think, for all of
Mhm.
us went on that, like, this isn't your book, because if this is sort of your, here's who I am, here's what I talk about, here's what I'm good at, here's the people I can help,
Mhm.
we can weave in some of that
Right.
story about domestic violence, about hurdles that you face personally. But really, the core message is that you can help them despite having difficult circumstances in their past. Like, you could have said, well, these crappy things happened to me, therefore I can never do this, that, or
Right.
the other. But it's
Yes.
like everybody has something,
Mhm.
some difficulty they
All do.
face. And so how do we rise above that, and
Mhm.
how do we help define our core values by that, and then the grace and grit required to do that.
Right.
And so I think it's just your brand and who you are is so positive and so uplifting and so inspiring, that had the book taken a focus of just trying to help people through domestic violence, it would not have been reflective of who you are as a
Right.
person. And I think now you've been able to shine this light that, yes, that also happened to me. And
Right.
despite that, I have built something
Right.
amazing.
Resilience. Right.
Resilience.
It's resilience, rising above
Yeah.
whatever it is that happened to you. It doesn't matter how big or how small, because your big may be my small, and
Yeah.
my small may be your big.
And
Yeah.
so now that the book launched in
It
February,
did.
and it was very exciting. And then Jennifer spoke at our annual event, our Book Naples event, and she does a lot of speaking. And so I would love to talk a little bit about your outreach and your message, and how you use public speaking and paid speaking to get out there and get in front of the right people, and how your book is kind of a natural segue. It kind of, I think, to me, in my world as a publisher, like a book and speaking just go hand in hand.
They do.
And so right before we clicked record on this podcast, Jennifer was telling me about an opportunity that's coming up soon. And she's done a bunch of different keynote talks. But how did that look for you in growing your brand and using speaking to grow your platform? What is that, maybe from the beginning, and then sort of how it's grown?
Right. So I've always had an interest in professional speaking. It's always been on my list of, this is where I fit in really well. And it just took a few steps here. And I shouldn't say just took a few. There's a lot of steps. It's like that iceberg and everything underneath, or that duck that's swimming. You
Yes.
don't, they look like they're just, easily doing it from the top, but underneath they're working really hard at it. And that's kind of
Her
what I
works her tail off, I will just say. I watch her, what she does, and she has a plan. And I think that's what's so impressive about what you're doing, is you're very
most of the time.
intentional about what you do. Okay, well, I know your feet are swimming very quickly,
Yes.
but Jennifer is someone who, I think that there's a portion of you that does a lot of outreach and
Mhm.
kind of seeking opportunities. And I think in the beginning, that's kind of how it goes. It's like raising your
Yes.
hand, like, I'm here, I'll speak, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then opportunities start flowing in.
And that's exactly it. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be seen by anybody and everybody. And that means creating content, consistent content. Don't do today and then not do tomorrow. You have to always be in front of people. Whether that's you're pounding the pavement and you're actually going to visit businesses or organizations to say, hey, do you have any speaking opportunities? I'm here, right? Or is consistently posting on social media. Whatever your method is, or however, or sending emails or picking up the phone and calling people, whatever your method is, you need to be consistent. And that's the number one thing. You have to just keep going and make it a vow to yourself. Every day, I'm going to reach out to this many people, whether that's picking up the phone or that's going to see people, however that looks for you, make it a vow. Or let's say it's during the week. I'm going to reach out to this many people during the week, because no, it's probably not going to happen on the first try. Probably not the second, but maybe after the fifth, sixth, seventh time, you've got somebody's attention because they keep seeing you everywhere and then they just can't ignore you.
Right.
And, the other part is giving free content to people. Make yourself so memorable, make yourself so valuable to them where they go, I can't believe she's giving me this stuff for free. If I
Yeah.
paid her to do this, what the heck is she going to do? And that
Right.
that goes to speaking and that goes to coaching. It's
Mhm.
both. Like, give them so much value that they're like, oh my gosh, mind is blown. But it's
Right.
just being consistent. It's always putting yourself out there, whether you want to or not. Because there are days where you're like, oh, I just don't want to be seen. You
Yeah.
have to. You have to be seen. That's how you get the speaking gigs. That's how you get everything. You
Yeah.
just have to be vulnerable enough to do it.
And I think there's so much to being said. Like, you're not going to get, you could pitch 10 different events.
Hmm.
Let's say your goal is to speak at conferences. You want to speak at one conference per quarter in the next year.
Right.
You might have to pitch 20 conferences. You might have to pitch
Exactly.
30, but it's okay. And,
Yes.
we were just talking, Jennifer and I saw each other recently, and we were talking about being a free speaker. Like, there is
Mhm.
value in, as an entrepreneur, to
Yes,
just
there
speaking
is.
for free in your community. So
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have to want to be a paid speaker.
Right.
Getting out there and just sharing value, like you said, about
Right.
your business, or about, if you own an AC company, about the top 10 ways to save money on your air conditioning in the
Right.
summer, in Florida. Like,
Right.
you could tell it's like 180 degrees here in Florida right now. Like, I'm
Right.
thinking, like, if I
I
didn't have
think it was
AC right now, I would
200,
not.
April. I think
Yes,
it's 200.
I think it is actually. But there's value in that. But
Hmm.
then you can graduate up that ladder of
Right.
speaking
Exactly.
to where you can,
Hmm.
like, speak for free. I'm saying that in quotes if you're
Right.
listening and not seeing my hands do the air quotes,
Your quotes.
but you're able to sell from the stage. Like,
Exactly,
you
which is
can
so
pitch
important.
something. So talk a little bit about those tiers and how someone who is speaking, who might say, like, well, I don't have time to speak for free because I'm trying to run my business. Like, what has that done for you, the speaking? Because I know you're not making $1 million a year
Right.
yet in speaking fees.
Yet.
Someday, I'm sure you will.
Yet.
But yes, from my mouth to God's ears. But
Exactly.
but how has that worked for you, to just being out in front of people, and the value and how that has grown for you?
Sure. Well, I have to say that it's really powerful when you get up on that stage and you give a keynote and people are listening to you, and you're not, let's say you're not getting paid for it, right? Because that's where it starts. You start here where or start down here where you're not getting paid. And some of those you can sell on stage. I've had some that I couldn't sell on stage. And I just went, you know what? Okay, that's an opportunity for me to practice my craft. Okay, that's what I had to take it as. And also important is to get that content. Have somebody recording it so that it's for free, but I got content for my sizzle reel. I got content for social media. I got everything I needed. Even though it was free, it was really great value to me. From there, you can graduate to, yes, I'm speaking for free, but I can sell from stage.
Yeah.
And that could be, if you have online courses or you do coaching or you can sell your book, that can just be weaved into your presentation, into your keynote address when you're speaking. So that's the next tier. And then from there, you can go to the getting paid gigs, but it doesn't always happen in that order. You may get a paid gig, but it's really low. And then you may get one that's not paid and you're doing it for free, but you can sell from the stage and you're going to get everything. But I wouldn't pass up an opportunity, especially in the beginning, to
Hmm.
speak for free. You have
Yeah.
to play your cards right. You have to sit back and go, okay, number one, does it align with my values? What I'm about, what my brand is about. If it does, okay, check there. What am I going to gain from speaking for free at this event? Practice, info for my sizzle reel, for my social media. Okay, check. What else? What else is important to you that you need to check off? And then make that decision. And,
Sometimes it can be, is it the right audience? Because you never
right.
know. You could be speaking for free, but if it's at a women's business conference, there could be 10 potential clients for you sitting there listening
Mhm.
to you who would pay you way more than the event would have ever paid you just to speak publicly.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
it's seeing the bigger picture. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think too, it's not just the people in front of you, it's all the people those people know. So if you do
Exactly.
a good job for that event,
Mhm.
the people who plan those events know other people who plan events. If you were kind and friendly in the booking process, if you
Mhm.
showed up on time,
Right.
if you made people laugh, if you over delivered on the value, it's like those things that you do just because you be a good human being
Right.
add up. And so it's exciting to know that really the sky's the limit as an entrepreneur, and that when you grow your confidence and you have that grace and the grit, as
Mm,
you talk about, anything is really possible. It's just that getting there takes time and
it does.
consistency and persistence. So, would you say that you have any sort of final advice or uh, thing that we didn't touch on that could really help someone who's like, yeah, I just feel stuck, or I just feel like I can't be consistent, or I just could never get on stage in front of someone, or I could never write a book. Like, how did you really gain the confidence to really put yourself out there?
I literally just sucked it up, buttercup, and I started everything before I was ready to actually start it. And I learned along the way, and those are the best lessons of my life.
I
The
love
things that I had to learn for me that nobody could ever teach me. Not that I wasn't willing to listen, but some things in life, the really good tidbits, you have to live through it and figure it out on your own.
so true. So true. Well, I am so grateful for you for
Thank
being in
you.
my life and for trusting us to get your book out to the world. And I'm so excited to see you as an entrepreneur, not just all the success you've had in the past, but everything you continue to do to add value to the lives of those around you. And I think that, earlier in this interview, we talked about the core value of surrounding yourself with the right
Mhm.
people.
Right.
And I think that you have done that so well. You really make a deliberate effort. Jennifer started a business book club in our town. And so every
Yes.
6 weeks or so, we get together, anyone who wants, and she's very
Mhm.
inclusive.
Yeah.
And she hosts it in her store. And we talk about whatever business book we all chose. And so that's just another way that she has grown her value as an entrepreneur because she wants to surround herself with the right people. And so by launching that book club, even, that's like a raising your hand because the only people that are going to come to that are people who are interested in reading business books
Mhm.
and growing a business.
Right.
So it's being really strategic with how you put yourself out there and spend your time. And I
Right.
think you are just a shining star and example of how to do that and do that well. So where's the best place for people to come to connect with you online?
Well, I am on my website, jenniferannjohnson.com. My company is also online, truefashionistas.com. But if you want to reach out to me personally, you can send me an email at jennifer@jenniferannjohnson.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and a huge place I hang out is LinkedIn. So you can
Love
find
it.
me in all those
And I'll
platforms.
put all of those links in the show notes so you can reach out to her. And it's Jennifer Ann, ANN with no E,
Correct. Yes.
Johnson.com. And on her website, you'll find her book, her podcast, her coaching and consulting, her courses, and all of that. You'll definitely want to connect with her. And I thank you so much for being part of our show today, for taking time out of your day to spend it, sharing all your wisdom about entrepreneurship.
Yay.
You're such an amazing author, and I'm excited to kind of cheer you on from the sidelines and watch all of your growth and success continue to soar.
Thank you so much, April. I'm very thankful for you.